Hey guys, good evening. Welcome back. My name is Donna Sharp with Holistic Wellbeing. Thank you for joining me here on day 472 of these lives. Very delighted to be here as this is a continuation of speaking from the book, 3 Steps to Creating a Strong Family. So if you did not get a chance to join me on the live a few days ago, I am slowly building up just to share with you the best possible ways that you are able to foster a good working relationship with your children and also creating structure while you're at home with your family. So last night I started to speak on laying the foundations and developing a legal system. So I touched on various points as it pertains to creating a structure, creating something that the entire family can follow so that there's no deviation and you have still the flexibility that you need, but you have the structure set in place that you definitely need to be there so everyone is on the same page, right? So what I'm going to do is continue speaking on that. Tonight, I spoke about the laws pretty much last night, all right? And what I'm going to do tonight, I spoke on the family laws last night. What I'm going to do tonight is speak about the consequences, all right? And again, this is by Stephen Covey. So these aren't my words. These are just things that I'm sharing that while you're at home during this, should I say, camp out? How long, we don't know, but while you're there, you want to make sure that you're using your time wisely. And why not use it in a way that you're able to just develop some guidelines, plan of action, routines with your family while you're at home. So my question to you is, do you feel that your children should have some form of consequences for actions that they don't follow through on? Well, I'm going to speak to you on that particular area tonight, just to shed some light on why it's important to make sure that you're either given rewards or you're given penalty when it comes to your children not following the rules that you've set in place. Now, remember, I spoke last night on you don't want to make it a dictatorship. It has to be where your children are involved in the decision-making process. So you don't want to make it this hardcore relationship where they're afraid to come to you and they're afraid to, hi Dee, thanks for joining, where they're afraid to come to you and they're afraid to express their opinion. Remember, as we're developing our children, we want to make sure that they have the freedom to grow, the freedom to express what's on their mind and their opinions, right? It has to be a learning process. So you have to make sure that you have a separation between parents and child. It should never be a friend-to-friend relationship, because then you're going to deviate from what the ultimate purpose is as far as you being a parent. Now, as I mentioned last night, they grow up one day to be parents and then they'll get their chance. But in the meantime, you have to learn how to foster that relationship in such a way that you're teaching them as much as you can, so when they do leave, they can grow and mature on their own. All right. So I'm going to speak to some things on consequences from you, as we just spoke in depth last night about the laws. Okay. So if you're not understanding what I'm speaking about, I would suggest that you go back and watch the previous lives, because then you'll understand how we're building up to this. Hi, Damon. How are you? Always get hearts from Damon. Thank you, Damon. You're so sweet. Thank you both for joining, and anyone else that may be on the line right now. So consequences as it pertains to creating a good family structure. Family laws won't make much of a difference, right? Or change the behavior until the children make a clear connection with their actions and their consequences. So you can set all the rules that you want in the world. We spoke about family laws right now. You can set the rules, create the guidelines, create the standards, but when they break the rule, what happens, right? Let me give you an example. A lot of you drive, I'm sure, right? What would happen if there were no stoplights, there were no stop signs, there were no railroad crossing rules and regulation? This would be a world of catastrophe, right? So you have to have laws, because if you did not, everyone will be just running between every single intersection. So quite the same when you're creating a family structure at home. If you're developing and setting those laws, you want to make sure that you have some consequences attached to it, because when they're not falling in line, you have to be able to set the example, refresh and rephrase what it is that you're looking for, and then have them reverbalize back to you what they understand. And at that point is when you will see whether or not they're grasping onto the process that you're actually teaching them. So the best consequences is a reward, all right? Given when you're given to your children when they keep the laws. So they do good, and you pretty much will look at them and say, you know what? You were consistent the entire week, and here's what I'm going to do for you. Because it's good to have that reinforcement, because when you have the reinforcement, then it tells them that, number one, you're paying attention, right? Number two, they're noticing that if they deviate from that particular law, there's going to be consequences attached to it. Now, the thing is, guys, you can't have consequences and you're not going to follow through, and you're going to feel, oh my goodness, I don't want to have consequences for them, because then they're not going to feel good about it. Okay. Do you want them to grow up disciplined or not? That's the decision that you probably back up and first, you have to back up and first clarify, because if you want to be fair to them and make sure that they're going to get the best treatment from you. Hi, Angie, welcome. The best treatment from you as a mom or dad to them, and you're not doing them a disjustice by not giving them those consequences, then what's going to happen is they're going to grow up really, what's the word I'm looking for? I keep wanting to say reject. You understand exactly what I mean. They're going to grow up and they're going to look back and say, man, I wish my parents was actually stricter on me. Or they'll just grow up saying, man, my parents was okay with everything, so I did whatever I wanted to do. So whichever way your children branch off and move away from you is going to be determined by how you are as a parent. If you are very lenient with them and you never gave them a chance to learn from the things and mistakes that they did by giving them some kind of reprimand, then they're never ever going to learn. So it's okay to discipline them, right? So the best punishment is withholding rewards. That's a great punishment for them. I got to tell you, in the islands in the West Indies, we get beatings there. All right, it's none of this stroke you and you're okay and we're good with this. No, you get beaten at home, right? But here's a different thing in the U.S. So you get beaten, they probably call the Child Protective Service on you. Hi, Gloria. They'll call the Child Protective Service on you. Next thing you know, you're in trouble for your own children. Go figure. Who does that, right? So the best thing right now that Stephen Covey has recommended from this book that I'm speaking from is that withholding rewards is a good thing. So when they don't follow through on what they're supposed to follow through as your children, as your child, then you want to withhold something that you've promised to give them. If it's more like a teenager, for example, they're coming out of high school, going into college, you promise them a car, right? That's a big withholding, because you know very well that they definitely want that vehicle. So when you withhold something as a vehicle from them because of things that they're not following through on, what an impact that would have. But it's also going to teach them a lesson in the process. And then the other thing is that it allows them to easily remember and accept the situation that you place them in, because when they grow older, they're going to appreciate that, number one, and number two, when they have their own children, they will look back. They may not necessarily use the same rules that you followed, but they'll deviate from it and add something with their own pizzazz that's going to help them to curtail the behaviors of their own children, right? So consequences of the law is broken and they have to receive some form of punishment. We're not talking about cruel punishment, all right? So spanking, corporal punishment, that's what I just spoke on. You know, it wasn't an unknown thing for us in Jamaica to get spanking. As a matter of fact, I remember vividly when I was in middle school back in Jamaica, that when I didn't have my homework one day, we had to line up. We all had to line up. And when you got to the front of the line, you're going to be asked if you had your homework. And if you didn't have a homework, you're going to get a strap in your hand. And I think that day I didn't have it. I remember it so vividly. But you know that they don't do that. You can't do that in the U.S. here. So guess what? Spanking, corporate punishment, according to Stephen Covey, is it's not really accepted here. It doesn't work very well. It teaches them, he says that it teaches the wrong thing. All right, it teaches the wrong thing. Sometimes you spank your children, they look at you as though nothing happened. That's the first thing. I don't know if you've experienced that or see a family that happened to. Spanking just doesn't faze them, right? So then what do? Do you think they're going to go back and correct the situation that you've asked them to do? No, because it didn't go very far with them. So withholding things gives a stronger pull when it comes to punishing them. Now, simple penalties usually involves restitution, right? A child who may not who make a mess, of course, you want to make sure that they do what? Do the opposite. You want to make sure that they clean up, right? If they make a mess, they have to clean up. You know they don't like the clean up part. Because quite like many teenagers, many children, they don't like to do a lot of household chores. So if they make a mess, you want to teach them that, okay, it's now time to clean up the mess. And they may tell you, listen, I want to go watch a movie, or I want to go out with my friends. And what do you say? Okay, go with your friends. When you come back, clean it up. No, you definitely don't want to do that, right? You definitely want to make sure that you have them on the spot, correct the situation before they go ahead and do whatever they want to do. This is not have as you please. This is teaching them to be disciplined, teaching them to be timely about the things that they do, and following up on the things that they're doing, right? So you want to make sure if they make a mess, they have to clean it up, right? A child who hits another child, and it could be even in a teenage stage, you want to make sure that they apologize to their sibling, right? And then if they do something without asking, you want to make sure that the next time that they ask permission first before going through to do that. He also speaks on how you should establish these consequences. What is the best way to put these consequences in play? And here's what he suggests. It's basically through another family meeting, and he suggests that you have a family meeting that's fun. So when you have all the children sitting there, all the family members, you make it a special meal because you want to make sure that you are showing them the best that you can offer them for doing the right thing. Because time and time again, they'll go back and they will want to do the right thing next time. Now, some children, of course, it's hard to teach them. I don't know what allows it to get it to click, but sometimes if you notice, you may tell them something once and you notice you're telling them something again and you're telling them again, you're figuring, why am I telling them the same thing 10 times? They're just not getting it. So sometimes you have to seek to understand. You may have to ask them the question so that they can verbalize to you, why is it that you're not getting it? Okay? So you say, based on what I'm seeing is, I've just asked you about 10 times to clean up that room and it's still not getting done. So I want to make sure that you're not misunderstanding me and I'm clear about what I'm saying. So can you repeat back to me what it is I'm looking for? Sometimes you have to turn the wheel around so they can verbalize that, first of all, they understand. And then if they after what they verbalize back to you, if you notice that they do understand, you want to then ask them the next question. What is it about what I'm asking that you're not clear about? Seek clarity, because sometimes it could be the smallest things that's going to allow them to get back on track and not falter back off the bandwagon. All right. So I have a story I'm going to share with you directly from this book. And if you're just joining me, I've been speaking from the book 3 Steps to a Strong Family, and it's by Stephen Covey. And we've been taking this book apart piece by piece. And so yesterday I spoke about family laws and laying the foundation. And today I'm speaking on the consequences, because it's important that your children have the proper consequences so that it's a learning process for them, right? Not a process that they'll regret, but they're loving it while they're going along, but yet you're still holding them accountable, okay? So we're going to touch a little bit tonight on, first let me say, last night I spoke about 5 one-word laws. When you lay the laws down, as I spoke about last night, the family laws, you want to make sure that it's very, very simple. Because a lot of times when you could be dealing with children in your family from the age of 2 up to 32, okay? So keep it simple, keep them one-word laws. And the one that we're going to be speaking on tonight is peace. Peace. How do you acquire peace with your family members and your children without making it seem like it's just too much for them? So the best way to establish these consequences is through another family meeting. That's what I just mentioned. Make a big deal out of it. Perhaps meet over a special meal or in a special place, because those are things that they can live by. And if you notice, several nights ago, I spoke on the importance of creating memories, right? When you create, not memories, but when you're creating traditions, they create memories. But quite like this, when you're creating these memories, they'll go back and they'll look back and say, I remember when I did this and here's what my family did. Certain things will stick out in their head, right? So what are the consequences of breaking nature's laws or the government laws. We just spoke about that. You have laws on the road when you're driving. What's the consequences when you run a red light? Now, I will tell you, many times people do that. Unfortunately, they're not caught. But there are consequences, right? So if you defy the law of gravity, what will happen? You will fall. Okay, so try walking off a cliff and just thinking you're Superwoman or Superman. What will happen? All right. Hi, Marlon. How are you? Welcome. Thanks for joining. If you defy the law of gravity, you will fall. If you speed or run a stoplight, you may cause an accident or get a ticket, right? If you speed or run a stoplight, you may cause an accident or get a ticket. Again, there's consequences, quite like having that relationship with your children. There's going to be consequences for you not following the rules. Here's another one. What are the consequences of breaking our new family laws? Well, point out that there are fair laws, have penalties for those who break them, not for those who don't. Right now, if you forget to ask your parents, if you forget to ask, your parents are punished by having to worry about you. If you don't keep your things in order, someone else has to, and so on. So basically, when they follow the laws, it makes it easier on the next person, right? Here's another one. It is best to have a reward for doing something right or a punishment for doing something wrong. Both. Because that's how it works in real life and in our family. All right. What do you think should be the reward and punishment for each of your 5 laws? Kids may suggest all kinds of outlandish penalties. Guide the discussion along the lines of natural consequences and towards the following suggestions. So we're rolling right into peace. Now I want to just share this section with you here. But before I do that, typically he has a story in this book that he shares. I'm going to read that to you in a minute. But here, let me talk a little bit on peace first. So establish a place of peace between your children. You may have one that's consequently annoying the other one all the time and frustrating them. You have to be able to have your eyes on these children, because sometimes some of them, they aggravate the other on purpose, right? So share with them have them see that there's a way that they're going to repent for the things that they do. And it could be some areas that they don't like. Some children don't like to go to their room. Some may not like to sit on a particular section of the house. So establish that first, because when they're in a situation where they're not following your family laws and your rules, then you want to make sure they understand that there is an actual corner that you will stay until you come to your senses. And as you know, right now, with all of us on lockdown, a lot of you are very antsy because you've been in your house for over a month and you're wondering, when is this all going to be over? Can you imagine putting a child on punishment and see how they feel, and them knowing that they're not able to attend activities that they want to, see their friends? That's not going to go very well. So it actually will pull a lot of weight. Just make sure that you follow through as a parent, right? So how should the differences be dealt with? What is the next step? First of all, you want to explain that what they have done wrong to their parents or caregiver. They have to understand what it is exactly that they did wrong, because in a lot of times when you have children that have misconduct, they may look at you and say, what did I do wrong? I don't understand. You're getting upset, mom or dad, or whatever happened. They may not see it as nothing, but you have to make sure that you're explaining the situation and clarifying what they did for their little innocent minds, right? And the second thing is, they should apologize to the other child for the specific act, whatever that may be. You know, when children are growing up, unless they are a single child by themselves, you know that one will either pull the hair of the other, one will either just smack the other one when your back is turned. You know they do things deliberately because one has to have more power over the other, right? So you want to make sure that you are encouraging them to apologize. This is the second thing, apologizing to the other person, right? And then the third thing is try not to repeat the same act over again. Make sure that's very, very clear to them. So I'm going to read you this story, and then I'm going to summarize everything on tonight in references, just talking about consequences and how we really should establish peace between our children when we're trying to build that family background. All right. So let me make sure I have the right story here. Yes. So it says that what times we've had with our repentant bench. They used a repentant bench here and the stairway when the children weren't behaving, just in case you're wondering what the lingo is all about. Okay. So what times we've had with our repentant bench. We've had children wanting to get off the bench but unable to think of any way in which they were at fault. Politely ask the other kid, whom they were furious at a moment before, what it was that they did wrong so that they could confess it and go. They just wanted to confess, get over it, and get off that bench. They didn't want to be there. So we've had kids with blood running down their face forgive a sibling who said, will you forgive me? I'll try not to do it again. We've had violent fights turning into more controlled debates by strong-willed children who would rather keep discussing than admit that they did anything wrong. Does this sound familiar? It's not only among children, guys. When I did the topic on a relationship between man and woman, the same thing happens. You have two adults that one don't want to confess that they were wrong. And what happens? It goes around in circle time and time again, and you're getting nowhere fast. And this is quite the example they're using with these children. Mainly, though, we've been relieved from the impossible role parents try to play of being the judge and jury, figuring out who's right and who's wrong, doling out punishments and having the whole thing start over again 2 minutes later. The bench became so important to us that once we were moved and had to furnish a new room, the very first thing we looked for and brought was a hard, uncomfortable bench. So that was their way of punishing those children, because they know they sit their little rump on that bench. After a while, they'll get a little bit antsy, and not only that, their rumps are gonna hurt, right? So when we need to go, we'll call the repentant back. We have to say sorry. We'll try various hard ways not to do it again, and follow the laws and make sure things are in line. So here's everything in summary based on what I just spoke about. The first thing is, by allowing to understand the whole piece of the consequences and what the actions that they're taking, is to keep these things in mind, and it's to basically develop peace in the household, right? So less fighting with your sibling would be the first thing, because where do you get with that? They can play and make fun of each other, and it's just all a part of the growing process. But when you're crossing the line about disrespect between one to the other, and you're really beginning to hurt them, then that's a problem. The second thing is having less temper. You know, some children, they're very short-tempered, just like the adults. They don't want to hear it. And when they don't want to hear it, I had a perfect example of that, but I'm not going to mention it. When they don't want to hear it, they shut you down. They don't want to hear anything else. You can't even finish your sentence because they know everything. Don't be that person. Don't have your child be that person. All right? So temper is not a good thing, because as you see them starting to mature as a child, you're going to ask yourself, when they get to be an adult, are these some of the same things that they're going to pick up as an adult? Having the temper, which you know what follows after that, right? Anger, which is not a good thing. And then the third thing is wait until they calm down. Because you're not going to get good resolution is coming from anyone being angry. It's quite, again, I go back to the adults when I say that when you have two individuals are so heated that they're disgusted at a situation that occurred, you never have a full conversation when both parties are not in the right mindset, because you're going to get nowhere fast. Everyone's going to think they're right, and no one's going to come to the objective resolution process that you need to, so that you don't go back down the same road again. And remember, consequences comes with action. So whatever it is that they're doing, you want to, once you lay the family laws, as we talked about yesterday, consequences, which was the topic of tonight, is going to help you to place a nice supportive edge around everything so that you can keep the control going. When there's no consequences, there's no rules to follow, and everybody does what they want, and we get nowhere fast. That's just the bottom line. All right. So if you had not been following me, this is probably like the 5th or 6th or 7th day that I've been speaking on this topic. I'm speaking directly from Stephen Covey's book, How to Build 3 Steps to Developing a Strong Family. And I'm pretty much going by his words in here. Of course, adding my own thought process because, I was brought up in a whole different culture than the U.S. And so some of the things they may mention in the book is not how I was brought up as a child. And I can add my own flair and share with you the reason why I'm where I am today and why I just think a lot of time the island culture is such a strong thing, right? So that's all I had for you today. This is my 472nd day of doing these lives. I'll be back again to speak with you tomorrow, and I will tell you that the topic we're going to be speaking on tomorrow, let me just find it here, is order. When you have the consequences all under wraps, then you have to move into the next section, which is developing order. So we're going to touch on that tomorrow. All right. So that's all I had for you guys this evening. I'm going to encourage you, please share this live with someone, especially if they have children right now that they're dealing with. The main reason I wanted to stay on the topic of how to develop strong children in your household is because you're locked in with them, right? And the second, should I say, excuse has always been, I don't have enough time. So guess what? You have more than enough time now to develop some good practices and good traditions in your household with your children. I don't care how young they are or how old they are. They still can use some learning along the way. As adults, we're still learning. So what is it to say about our children, right? But it's the perfect time for all of you to develop and pick up gear and figure out, how can we establish some tradition in our household? How can we do things a little different? How can we become more responsible? Because once you're sitting still right now, guys, there's no better time than now to make sure you're developing good action plans so that when you're out and ready to go, when you're ready to go out, it's not going to be the same as it was before, but at least you'll have something set in place that you can actually follow. All right. So please share this with a friend. And outside of that, please if you love what you love, just hit the love button. You know how I feel about that like button, right? Something has been in my eye now for a little bit. And outside of that, just share it with someone else in your circle you feel can benefit from it. And outside of that, just log on to my website, holisticwellbeing.com. There you can find out why I'm so passionate about what I do. So I do pray that you are all staying safe and you're being smart about it and using what we call common sense. If you don't know what common sense is, by all means, just message me and I can share a little bit more with you on that. But aside from that, please stay safe, guys. There's lots happening right now. But I tell you one thing, in a time like this, you have to have strong faith. So always look up to Christ instead of looking out in front of you, because nothing is promised but a good salvation. Dee, thank you so much for joining. Marlon, I love you, man. Thank you for joining. And let's see what Dee said here. Angie, great to see you. Damon, great to see you. Damon, Dee, I'm just waving to everyone here. I want to see what Dee says here. I wish more parents will be watching this. Well, Dee, it's going to be up to you, my friend, to share this live with someone else. Now more than ever, with parents 24/7 stress, kids seeing friends, to great opportunity to work on family. Absolutely. You nailed it right on point. Nailed it. You see, society right now, what they do is they have everyone running east to west, north to south. They're working all the time. They're engaged in many things that are happening outside of the home. So very rarely do they have time to spend together. So if there's no other time to do it, now is the time to get those good practices in place and find out what it is that you need to touch upon as a parent. Okay, it's not always the children, all right? Find out what you need to touch upon as a parent and how you can foster a better relationship with them. So that's all I had for you. Thank you guys for your feedback on the slide. If you've logged in later on, please, by all means, type replay in the box. And don't just type replay. Make sure you watch the entire live and comment and let me know what you think. So I'll be back again here tomorrow, guys. Thank you for tuning in and being so patient with me and for following me on this journey for the entire year and almost a half. I'll see you guys back again tomorrow. Have a fantastic evening. Ciao.